Okay, we're recording. So week 6. This week we are doing dark web forensics and investigating email crimes. So right now you don't see a Forensic Friday one, but I'm going to tell you right now, we are going to be starting with the program that's called Autopsy. And then next week, because let me go into your assignments. As you can see, we only have one module. Do you remember me showing you that NIST repository of all the images and stuff? Well, Autopsy is the piece of hardware or the piece of software that you use when you go through all of that stuff for a lot of them when you're looking for evidence. I will warn you right now that these are made for mimicking real world situations, and sometimes you can find adult materials in there. As my last class will let you know, and Steve talked to Lance on this, so he got to see. Some of it did catch me off guard, and yes, you may see my face turn red or I might get surprised. So that just happens, unfortunately, when you are looking through stuff and go, oh, that's a little bit more than I was expecting. So just be aware that some of the material might have things like that in there. So if you find something that's objectionable or something like that, or you get upset, feel free to skip that section. Or if you need to talk to me about something, just let me know, okay? Don't open anything from Steve. No, what we did last time was a mimicking of a terrorist, what was a suspected terrorist. And of course, in a lot of those cases, they find pornography on there. So there was some things like that in there. So just be aware. I will look and see what I can find. So I don't know what all will be in there. That's the point of those files, is you're trying to mimic a real live forensic investigation. So yeah, I didn't find anything gruesome like that, but there was some adult material. So like I said, if you need to talk to me about something, or if you're uncomfortable with something, please talk to me about it first. If you're uncomfortable with doing anything, just let me know, because as you guys know, the key is just to chat with me and I will make things work, okay? So this week, with our web forensics and investigating email crimes, we'll be doing those on Monday and Wednesday. And then on Friday, we are going to work through Autopsy. Now, if you look out in the forensic tools, you'll see a link out to Autopsy. This is a large file. I suggest you go out and get it, get the zip file for Windows. I'm going to be using the Windows version. There is what's called Sleuth Kit out there for Linux if you want to use Linux, but I will be using the Windows version. So just be aware of that if you use the Linux version, it may look a little bit different, and just be aware of that, okay? Any questions about what we're covering this week? Not at the moment? Okay. All right, so today we are talking about dark web forensics. So that means we need to understand what is considered the dark web. We need to understand how to identify traces of what are called Tor browsers during an investigation. We need to understand Tor browser forensics. And then we need to have an overview of collecting and analyzing memory dumps. Really? Right next to me? Thanks, Kat. I really hope you guys weren't able to hear that. So, first part of the module is understanding the dark web. Yep, they are rather loudly hacking a hairball up. I apologize for that. So, there are different layers of the internet. So they are referred to as the surface web, which is your, everyday web, deep web and dark web. So on the surface web, on here, it's what they're calling it is the visible part of the web, and it contains content that can be easily accessed by search engines like Google, Yahoo, Bing, and just the generic, easily downloadable ones that the average everyday user sees. Then there's what's called the deep web. This can only be accessed by using by an authorized user that has a valid username and password, includes content like legal documents, financial records, government reports, and subscription information. So remember, there's a difference between deep web and dark web. Dark web, this is your invisible or hidden part of the web and requires specific web browsers like the Tor browser to access, and such browsers protect the anonymity of the users. However, I'm going to put a caveat here. Even though you have Tor browsers and things like that, that does not mean that there is not some product or something out there that can't eventually backtrace you. So be aware. Yeah, Chrome, dark web browsing, but you know what it's going to be is there's going to be an asterisk after it.
Fully monitored by your local government office.
Exactly, right? And we have all of your records. And yeah, exactly. It's like that Little Brother book, like that. So we're going to talk about Tor because Tor is an integral part of dark web. So Tor relays are also referred to as routers or nodes through which traffic passes. For greater security, the Tor circuit is designed to have three types of relays. You have your entry relay. That's when establishing a Tor network, the user connects to the entry node from which the IP address of the user can be seen. Then you have your middle relay, and here the data is transferred in an encrypted mode. And then you have what's called an exit relay. The data is sent to the destination servers through this node. Thus, the exit node is seen as the origin of the traffic, hiding the original identity of the user. Now, something else to make note of when you're using the dark web, a lot of times you can't just randomly search. Obviously, that's why they were talking about surface web. You have to know either direct IP addresses or websites, and a lot of times your internet providers, you have to have software or things like that that will get around them, because your internet providers have lists that will actually block you from even trying to access those areas. So
most or a good chunk of the IPs that anyone would want to access, you also have to be able to convince people in chat rooms to share the IP with you.
exactly. And then so
that's where the FBI honeypots come in.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have to be very careful depending on what you're looking for in the dark web. It can be used for legitimate information sharing, but for the most part, what most people see it as is sharing things that are illegal, sharing things that happen to be illegal in your country but are not illegal in other countries. For example, it's used for dissidents in some countries where they would be beheaded for speaking out against their country, things like that. So a lot of the times, even things that would seem in our country to be, oh, that's silly, why would I go on the dark web to try and do that? Well, because in their country, they could be killed for this. So it's very serious to them. So they have to go out and find someone that is willing. They have to prove that they are a trustworthy person. And then they will be given, hopefully, they are speaking to someone that's legitimate and not, as we talked about, a honeypot, giving them an incorrect address and then scooping them up and taking them off anyway. and they can then get out and talk to other dissidents that want to be free in those areas. But as for, for the United States legal network, one of the biggest things, well, there's a couple of big areas that they use, that they go after on the dark web: drugs, weapons trafficking, and sex trafficking, and pedophilia, things like that. Those are some huge ones that they go after on the big three-letter agencies like the FBI, the NSA, the CIA. In fact, they have entire subsections in the FBI that all they do in these little groups is they have people that train in how to talk like and mimic. This is how you sound like a 13-year-old girl on chat, so you can honeypot and catch this pervert who's out there trying to look for a kid. And a lot of the times, because of the type of things that they have to do, they have, I think, a 3 to 4 year time period because they burn out so quickly. And I don't blame them. I mean, if I had to talk with people like that every single day, I don't think that I would be able to do that for a long time. But they have a mandatory period of time in which you have to rotate out of those divisions.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're literally swimming in human filth.
Exactly. I mean, you get burnt out really fast. You mean the mental health issues alone are
Well,
just staggering.
Who was it? Nietzsche. You can only stare into the abyss so long before the abyss stare. Yeah.
Yeah. That is what a lot of the dark web is actually used for, and it's very disconcerting. So if you decide that you want to work with that, be aware of what you're going to be getting into. I highly suggest, before you try to get into a job like that, that you try to talk to someone in the field, and you get, because that's what I did. I was lucky enough to actually speak to people within the field, and I'm glad I did, because it made me realize this was not for me. Okay, so how do these Tor browsers actually work? They're based on Mozilla Firefox web browser, and it works on the concept of onion routing. In onion routing, the traffic is encrypted and passed through different relays presented in the Tor circuit. This multi-layer encrypted connection makes the user's identity anonymous. The Tor browser provides access to the .onion websites available on the dark web. Tor's hidden service provides protocol allows users to host websites anonymously with .bit domains, and these websites can only be accessed by users on the Tor network. So you see down here, user origin, entry relay, and then you have your middle relays. Then you have your exit relay, destination server, and anywhere you see red is unencrypted. Anywhere you see green is encrypted. I'm not sure. Well, I didn't see what you said there, so I'll have to look.
He was quoting The Punisher is Frank Castle.
Oh, Frank, I didn't. Yeah, no, not sure that that's a legit one there. Sorry. But I did enjoy the Punisher comic books. So, Tor bridge node. The Tor relay nodes are publicly available in the directory list, but the bridge node is a different node from the relay nodes. The bridge nodes act as a proxy to the Tor network, which implies that they follow different configuration settings to forward the traffic to the entry node. It makes it difficult for organizations or governments to censor the usage of Tor and list the bridge nodes on the public directory of Tor nodes. So again, we have our user origin bridge node, entry, middle thing that it shows here. So that's just the basics there.
Honestly, I don't know if I just have too much, unironically saying this, too much faith in the government, but I honestly believe that they see a lot more than they let us know that they want or that they see in Tor.
Considering how quickly they managed to take down the Silk Roads, and some of the other things, I have a hard time believing that there aren't some chunks of the onion router that
Because
aren't already broken.
I was gonna say, wasn't Tor designed around like old defense? I don't remember where I read about it, but
I believe it was
Tor,
actually Navy.
yeah, like it was
Actually,
old.
CIA, I think.
Was it
CIA
CIA?
has the encrypted communication platform.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
their network, and then basically it got co-opted. But I mean, I don't think I've ever seen the military design something without having a way to break it.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of white hats and gray hats in the dark web. I've actually met some white hat hackers that use the dark web for good. So I do believe that there are good ones out there, but I also believe that there are some government entities that are out there that keep track of things a little bit more than they should. So just be aware of that, and don't do anything that you don't want them to know about. Okay, dark web forensics. Dark web forensics involves identification and investigation of illicit activities on the dark web platform by attackers and malicious users. To investigate the malicious activities performed using the Tor browser, investigators should obtain memory dumps from the suspect machine and examine them to extract valuable information like websites browsed, emails accessed, etc. So how do you identify those browser artifacts? And you kind of have to use the command prompt. There are some other ways that we'll talk about here. Tor browser, when it's installed on a Windows machine, uses port 9150 and 9151 for establishing connection via Tor nodes. When investigators test for the active network connections on the machine, they can use that netstat ANO, and they will be able to identify whether Tor was used on the machine. And this one right here, the state of active connections is listening. You can see that circled down here, and that means the browser is open. And then state of active connections is time wait, means it's closed. I don't know if any of you have any of you actually installed a Tor browser and seen how it installs? You do not see it in your Windows programs. So that's why you can't, it doesn't work like a normal browser. So you don't have the normal browser artifacts. So that's why you have to find it in different ways. When the Tor browser is installed on a Windows machine, it uses the user activity is recorded in the Windows registry. So the forensic investigators can obtain the path from whether Tor browser is executed and the registry key. It's in the H key. And then you can see here, it's under the Mozilla Firefox launcher. And you can see them circled right here. And you'll see what it does is it when you install it, it puts a folder on your desktop. And that is, I mean, it doesn't show up in the other spots. Extract last execution date and time for a Tor browser. On a suspect machine, the investigator analyzes the state file located in the path where the Tor browser was executed. The directory of the state file in the Tor browser folder is, and you see that right there, Tor browser, Tor browser, data Tor. Nice long one there. And then you can see the state file, and it tells you on this one where it was last. So, prefetch files. When it is uninstalled from a machine, or if it is installed in a location other than the desktop, it will be difficult for investigators to know whether it was used or the location where it is installed. Examining the prefetch files will help investigators in obtaining this information. The prefetch files are located in your C Windows prefetch on a Windows machine. You can see those over there on the right. Using tools such as Win Prefetch View, investigators can obtain metadata related to the browser, which includes browser created timestamps, last run timestamps, number of times it was executed, the execution directory, and the file name. You can see that over here.
Can this also be seen if Tor is run on a VM?
You know, I am not altogether sure. I've never run Tor on a VM.
Because that's how I've done it before. And so, I mean, I wasn't sure if it's you pull like the image, and how we had one of our other labs where you then inspect the image and you can, I guess, recover deleted files that way, and perhaps you can find some sort of data on it, but I don't know.
Mostly with the Tor browsers, it's very difficult to see what the person was actually looking at this way. So it's just pointing out basically whether or not they had it on their system.
Right. And then, yeah, that's what I was wondering, is if you can still see that data on a VM.
You would have to be able to get into the VM, I believe. So if you had, say, a VM that you had created and then encrypted, it would be more difficult. And a lot of times they might not, just for that level of information to say, yep, they had it, but not be able to prove anything past that. They usually are not super interested in that. Dark web forensics challenges. So what are the fun things you have to deal with? So it's an incredibly high level of anonymity. The dark web allows perpetrators to carry out illegal activities by hiding their identity. Encrypted networks. Tracing physical location of the perpetrators is difficult. Notice how they say difficult, not impossible. There are a limited number of traces. When the Tor browser is uninstalled on a suspect machine, the investigator is left with a limited number of artifacts, which makes the investigation process difficult. And then lastly, legal jurisdiction issues. Criminal activities on the dark web occur irrespective of jurisdiction, posing legal jurisdiction issues to investigators and law enforcement agencies. So that is fancy talk for saying they could get on the dark web, and if they are accessing stuff that is in a country where it is legal, it is very difficult to get in any sort of cross-jurisdictional cooperation, especially if it is technically legal there, for them to even get that information. So exactly, international waters. It is very difficult to do that. That's why when you have large busts that are international, like they had a huge kiddie porn ring, I want to say 5-10 years ago, that was international, and they took out, gosh, like 105 of them, and it was through like 15-16 different countries. But that was because they all synced up and set everything up ahead of time, and they had an international group, and they all worked together and created basically.
It was a task force run by Interpol.
Yeah, and that's usually what happens. You have to have something like Interpol, and that's what happened when they did Silk Roads and went after that, because they had tons of people all across the world, so they had to use agencies like Interpol, and they coordinated with people like the FBI, the CIA, the people in like places like the UK and Germany and other places like that, in order for that sort of cross-jurisdictional nightmare to even work. You have to have cooperation across the board, which can be difficult on the best of days. Okay, Tor browser forensics. So, memory acquisition. RAM contains volatile information pertaining to various processes and applications running on your system. Examining RAM dumps can provide deep insights regarding actions that occurred on the system. Forensic investigators can examine these dumps in an attempt to extract various Tor browser artifacts that help in reconstructing incidents. The results obtained by examining these artifacts differ based on the following conditions. Is Tor browser opened? Is it closed? Is it uninstalled? A memory dump taken while the browser is open collects the most number of artifacts, while a dump taken post-browser uninstallation collects the least. Memory dumps taken while the browser is closed contain most of the information that is found in memory dumps collected while the browser is left opened. Okay, collecting memory dumps. Investigators need to acquire a memory dump of the suspect machine to begin forensic examination. Tools like Belkasoft Live RAM Capture and FTK Imager can help create RAM dumps that they capture them. The memory dump collected from the suspect's machine not only contains artifacts related to the browser, but also all the activities that occurred on it. So left, you see the Belkasoft Live RAM Capture. And then on the right, you see the FTK Imager. Now, this is why when you hit a crime scene, if you have a running computer, it is very important to leave it in that state. Because if you have any possibility at all of catching something like this, you'll need to leave it as is in order to get it. So how do you do memory dump analysis? Well, you can use things like bulk extractor. The memory dump acquired from the machine must be examined on the forensic workstation to discover artifacts that may potentially be helpful during investigation. Tools such as bulk extractor help in processing these dumps and providing useful information such as URLs browsed, email IDs used, and personally identifiable information entered in the websites. So on the left, you have your image input file, and then you can see feature files extracted from your image file on the right. All right, so what did we go over? Dark web concepts. We discussed how to identify the traces of Tor browser, how it's on your system. We discussed the detail in performing Tor browser forensics. And then we also talked about collecting and analyzing memory dumps. Next module, we talk about email crimes.
You've got a question.
Yep.
No, you have a question in chat.
I thought you said you had a question, sorry. So are you asking about the first thing is create an image of the whole system? Is that what you're saying? If you're trying to do okay, it depends on what you're after. If the system is live and running, it's best to, if you have, it depends on what type of tools you have, but trying to get an image of everything in the state that it's at, if you can do that, then yes, do it that way. Sometimes you can have to use tools that just dump running memory and then you image everything after that. So sometimes you have to chunk it out depending on how the hardware is set up. So you go in order of volatility. So the first thing to do in that case is dump the memory, because that's the one that's the biggest problem. And then if you have to do a drive image or things like that, then you do your drive image. Does that make sense? We good? We good. All right. Does anybody else have any questions on that? Nope. Okay. I'm going to stop the recording here and talk to you about homework and some other things.